like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in the cage, I'ma let out the wake up, get out the sheets. We came from one man, forget that peace. You take the west side, take on the east.
Okay, so Rachel Shelley.
Hello.
Absolute icon. The hardest thing when I walked in earlier was not to call you Helena, because I saw you and I was like, it's Helena Peabody. Hi.
I get that a lot. I was actually just walking this morning with the dogs, and my neighbour, who I've known for 4 years, who lives here, she said, when you first moved in, she said, I had real trouble not calling you Helena. And I was like, why is she married? How is she married to a man? She'd never told me that before. I've known her for 4 years. She'd never told me that before. She said, I had real trouble. I kept saying, no, it's not Helena. It's not.
Do you get that often?
Yeah, well, I suppose so. I mean, it's the funny thing about the L word is that it was a big thing at the time, and then it felt like, oh, was it then going to just that was an era, but it comes back, and of course all the different iterations of it mean that it keeps coming back, and people rediscover it, and younger people rediscover it. I mean, my neighbour is a woman of my age, so she was watching it at the time. But you get young women now who watch it. I meet people all the time who it's still the thing, and now they think it's vintage and retro, which is quite funny because I'm like, I'm not. But it keeps coming, and it keeps coming back in waves. It's interesting.
When you did the L word, did you realise how groundbreaking it was at the time?
A little bit, yes, kind of. I mean, so I joined in the second season, and I always say that the women who started in the first season, they were the pioneers, and they, in lots of ways, took quite a big risk. If you think about how long ago it was far too long ago.
Was it 2000, 2005? When was it?
Is that right?
I don't know.
I can't remember now.
Sometime.
But it was a long, it was a while ago. And things were different, and it's weird to think of that because it seems almost impossible that could be the case. That people in LA would be sort of like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? Do you know what you're getting into? And I think there was, for a lot of actors in LA, this sense of, this is a risk. If I do this, will I now be typecast? Will it end my career? Which is just incredible to think now that could be the case. They were the pioneers. They were the people who really sort of stepped out of maybe a comfort zone and took a risk. I think when I joined, I'd seen the posters. I was in LA at the time, and you'd see these big billboards of these women and just think, wow, that looks like a great show. And you'd watch it and think, that's a great show. And then to get involved was already a hit. I didn't really take a big risk. Some people, some reps that I now no longer have, they did sort of say, are you sure? You want to, you know what you're getting involved in? And I remember thinking, I don't understand, because I've done so many roles where I've had to kiss men that I'm not involved with, who I might even find a bit repulsive, and I have to, might have to get involved with. To me, it's like, well, you're acting, you're not.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you sort of get yourself in the space where you're like, well, I'm just going to go and have a lesbian sex scene now?
Well, my character generally had maybe one a season, so it wasn't a lot. I think you have one every character of the whatever, there were 9 of us initially. We each have. Whitney's looking at me
She's like, what are you talking about?
I didn't know this about you. I didn't know. So generally most of this was like 9 of us, so the core cast, I think, and you had one big major sort of sex scene.
You had some scandalous
of the season, and so you'd be well prepared. You'd know it was coming. It's not like you were ever surprised. It's not like you got on set and they said, So everyone was very ready, and you'd always coordinate it. I mean, compared now to how they do things, where they have an intimacy coordinator on set as given, you're not. It's just everyone has that now. We didn't have that. We just had to get on with it. But you did work it out with the director, Eileen Chaikin, the showrunner. She was more or less there, to oversee and help and discuss and make sure no one felt uncomfortable. of course, there are a lot of actors come and go, so I can't speak for everyone, but I think that they did their best for what they had at the time to make sure everyone was comfortable. And depending on who you did that with, different scene partners. I mean, I had a lot of scenes with Laurel Holloman, and I had a lot of scenes with Alexandra Hedison, who played Dylan, and that was easy because we got on very well. We'd been working together for a long time. It was a bit harder if it was someone who maybe only joined the cast for a short period of time. That would obviously be another hurdle you'd have to sort of get through. But they weren't that difficult, really.
I can't imagine why.
I think actors, that's love stories, sex stories, whatever. That's the stories we tell all the time, especially when you're in your 20s. That's the stories you're telling all the time, and I think if you have difficulty doing that, it's going to really limit your scope as an actor, because that's the stories we tell, love stories.
Did you feel any responsibility because you come from Bollywood and short films and stuff, and all of a sudden you're thrown into this thing that actually is people are looking at it and thinking, wow, this is my life. This is me me being represented for sometimes the first time in a way that actually, the community really appreciated. And did you ever feel that weight of actually I have to, really do this well? And
well, I mean, obviously you always, I do go into something thinking I want to do this as well as I can. And really, regardless, I didn't have this sense of, I have to do this I have to represent, I didn't have that sense. I wanted to do it as well as I could, and obviously I did as much research as was open to me. So, I mean, I have gay friends, so that it wasn't like such a stretch. It wasn't like I was playing something I found, completely alien to me in any way. I had, like I say, plenty of gay friends, so that was quite straightforward. But I did try and read. I'm one of those people I do always go to a book to read about it, and I read loads of stuff about political books about problems that lesbian couples would have and face in the legal world and having children. So I tried to sort of cover the bases of knowing what the political background was. But I don't think I felt the responsibility so much until after I'd done it, and then started doing interviews and started reading bits of press where there was, I can very clearly remember, and I can't remember what it was in, but something just saying, something along the lines, it was very clear that Rachel Shelley is not gay. And I was like, well, yeah, I never said I was, but does that make it impossible for me to play a lesbian? I don't think so. I mean, this is a conversation that goes on and on still now, as we know. Should straight people play lesbian women, as actors? And personally, I always think that if you can't limit that. I think actors can play an awful lot of things and should be able to play and be encouraged to play an awful lot of things, because with the gay actors that I know, if they thought that they could only play gay roles, think how limited they would be. And I just don't think that's fair. I think you're either believable in a role or you're not, and people will have different opinions. So,
and your role, Helena Peabody. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was she based on anybody at that time? And how much of yourself did you inject into that, if any?
I didn't know this when I took the role on, but Eileen Chaikin, showrunner, later told me that there was a woman in New York that she knew, I don't know if she was English or not, who was a huge philanthropist and very, very moneyed, and had that air, that sort of Helena Peabody sort of super. So she did know someone like that who had inspired it. I don't think it was based on her, but it had inspired the role. But I think as the years went on, and I think this often happens on a TV show, the writers sort of get to know you. You get to know, especially the L Word was shot in Vancouver. Most people who watch the show know that, but it was based in LA. So we would go to LA and do these location shots to sort of make it feel like LA. But for the most part, we were all up in Vancouver. So everyone was on location. So it was quite an intimate group, you spent a lot of time, not just your working time, but your free time with the writers, the producers, everyone, the crew. You all hang out together. So they get to know you. And I think if they, I came in doing this role the character was, as you know, supremely rich, full of herself, really, very, bold and all the, but when I met them, I remember a lot of them being quite shocked because I don't think I automatically, Rachel, I don't project that, I don't think, maybe, I don't know. But I think they started to sort of write a bit more comedy and a bit more, that's why I think they took Helena down a peg or two, so that she could, not only because it's a great character arc, but so that side of maybe me could come out a bit more, to not be quite so, not buttoned up exactly, but, in control. And I can't remember all the words that they used initially to describe her, but, just so moneyed and arrogance. And I think that taking her down a notch or two allowed them to
taking her to prison,
yeah, taking her really into Orange. That was something that I was very keen to do. I was very keen to get her into prison. Yeah, I thought it was good because I just think the women's prison is such a great story and such a great place to have these stories told. It's such a great location.
Do you have a favourite moment, an iconic Helena L-word moment that you just think, that's it, that was...
Well, like you say, because there were so many sort of versions of Helena, I think I always loved the moment in the not the netball, that's English, in the basketball. Do you remember when I throw the basketball over my head and it goes in, and that really happened? That's what was so brilliant. I actually did it. It was a complete
How
fluke.
many takes?
The first take. That's what was so great about it. It was that it was it was a real fluke. I mean, never to be captured. They set it all up. They spent ages doing the crane shot and this shot and like 4 or 5 different angles. Everyone ready. We've practiced. And then we do the take, and obviously it doesn't matter because by the magic of television, they'll make it look like it goes in, but they film the whole thing, and it does go in, and everyone is genuinely going, oh. But we all know that we have to keep in character to keep it going, because basically they all want to go, Rachel, oh my God. But everyone goes, Helena. And I had to really keep it together because I was like, I've got to stay in character. And that was great. That was always a very fun telling moment. But I think there are other moments where I'm more Helena, and maybe in that first season I often think there was a restaurant scene where I meet my mother, Peggy Peabody, played by the amazing Holland Taylor, who I love. I absolutely love her. And the children are there, and I'm in a white cashmere woolen suit or something, which has this frill. I mean, it's a bit Cruella de Vil, and I walk in, and it was so... I remember I was tinkling with all the jewellery that I was wearing, and that was a real moment, I think.
So I always wondered, when I was watching, and I know a load of people did as well, watching it being younger, thinking, is this what it's like in LA? I'm moving there immediately as soon as I'm old enough and going. Did you learn from I know you didn't spend a huge amount of time filming there, but did you learn anything about, was it a real reflection of what life was like at the time for the sort of lesbian community?
Well, I think Eileen and so there's Angela Robinson and her wife Alex Kondracki, and there's Eileen was writing her experience, absolutely, of West Hollywood, of exactly that. That's what she was writing. So yes, it was real, but then to the nth degree, because I'm sure their lives weren't quite as, like every week some major drama going on. But maybe, I don't know, who can say? But I think I hear that a lot, what you said about the sort of the channeling that viewers had. And someone told me, I did an interview a little while ago on a podcast, and they told me that my character allowed so many young lesbian girls to go, that's who I'm going to be. And that's what people do. They go, I can be that. I'm going to be her. And that's like a lot of people do. I am going to be the woman. I'm going to walk in and everyone's going to turn around and look, and I'm going to swing. I'm going to be that person. And whether you choose Helena, or if you choose Shane, or if you choose Alice, whoever you choose, you channel. It gives you a role to play. That is totally acceptable. I can be that person.
But that's almost how timeless it is now. I mean, I know so many lesbian friendship groups where someone does something like, you're Shane, you're Alice.
Really?
It kind of happens. Like, it's kind of... And as somebody who's kind of in film, what do you think of the representation then and now? Because it has changed, and I'm not sure
hugely.
that anything has really lived up to that. What do you think?
Well, I think that's really hard for me to say whether something's lived up. I mean, I don't know, because obviously my view of the L word is so caught up in my personal experience of it. It's very hard for me. All those people I see more as friends than I see as the characters. So it's quite confusing. I couldn't say whether things live up to it. What I love is the fact that representation, if that's what it is, but it's not even representation. The characters are everywhere now. Lesbian women are in all sorts of things, and they don't even... It doesn't even become a thing. It doesn't ruffle. It doesn't become a gay show. Like, I've been watching, what's that show? Rachel Weisz. Double. What's it called? Not Double. Where she plays twin sisters.
Oh, I don't know if I've
You
watched
don't see it exactly.
No, yeah.
So there she is. So she's playing Rachel. What's it called?
Well, there's so much in everything, isn't there? Like Killing Eve, even. Like, to have a lesbian storyline in that.
And it doesn't necessarily become a lesbian show. And I don't know, but isn't that what we want? That it's just there? That it isn't like, oh, this is just a world exclusively of lesbians? Because I don't know if that's particularly real.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to have this world where here's a group of friends, and some of them are lesbian, and some of them are straight, and some of them are gay, and some of them are queer, and some of them haven't made up their mind, and some of them are transitioning, and so that is the world, and that's how it should be. And like Dead Ringers, isn't that what it's called? Dead Ringers. So that show is what I love about that show. I mean, I love Rachel Weisz; she's amazing, but she plays twin sisters, so she's playing opposite herself. I don't even know how they do that. It's amazing. Are they both gay, or just one of them is gay and has this long-term relationship with another woman? And it's brilliant because that's just one element of that show, and it's very dark and it's very twisted. It's kind of Twin Peaksy, kind of dark. It's a remake of something. Anyway,
everyone in the room's adding it to their watch list.
Yes, it's really, oh my goodness, it's really good. It's very dark. It's very dark. But and there's a character in that who is very Helena Peabody, actually, who's a New York money woman who, again, sponsors and throws her money around, but then controls, sort of like the puppet master with her money. But that's just an element of it. It doesn't become a lesbian show. It's a show where one of the characters is a lesbian. And I think that's what we want, isn't it? I think.
Would you ever go back to it? Do you ever see a Helena Peabody in Generation Q, or?
Well, I mean, it would have been great. And, they're always talking about what's happening next and what's happening. Is there another one? I mean, the number of... If I go on social media, the main question is L word New York at the moment. And I don't know where anyone's really got this from. Because when I had, like, earlier this year, and I had some emails with Eileen... She's a bit like, so I don't know where, I mean, things move fast.
Possibly, though.
Everything's possible. Would I go back? Absolutely. I think it would be great fun. Whether it'll happen, I don't know. It's not, if it was up to me, I'd go and play her again. Yeah, of course. But
and are you still in touch with, Eileen still in touch with anybody else from the show? Like, how does...
Yeah, quite, Jennifer Beals was over in the summer. I know she was doing, she was in London for quite a while, so hung out with her, and that was lovely. And Laurel, when she often comes through London, and we've met up in various places. Various people, people that maybe are not like Meredith McGeechee, who played Tonya. She often comes through. I always see her, and Alex Hedison, a lot of them, yeah.
Do you ever look back together at any of it and go, oh my God, what on earth? What were we doing?
Oh yeah, we've had, definitely, of course. I mean, that's our sort of, But again, like I was saying before, it's tied up not only in the show, because we were all living there. And I think, again, because we were all on location, it was a different vibe to maybe if for example, I know that they shot Generation Q in LA. So a lot of the cast, of the main cast, were at home, going to work, coming, going home again. So it's a very different vibe from if you're all on location where you work and then you go, well, what are we doing now? What are we doing? It's a different vibe. You bond in a different way, I think. And so a lot of the stuff when we chat, well, my conversations with people is more about the world around it, not necessarily the show. Sometimes the show, but mainly the world around us, all the people that if you watch, you wouldn't know. You don't, like I say, the directors, the producers, the crew, all that, it's a whole nother world behind the camera. Isn't it, Winnie?
What do you think of Generation Q as a viewer? Like, did you enjoy it? Did you think it's...
I watched a few episodes at the beginning. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought there was a great beginning. I think it was a brilliant beginning when, can't remember her name, but someone's cycling and someone wolf whistles her and, I don't know, she gives them the finger or something. And she turns around and said, "Time's up, buddy." And I just thought, yes, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's I think it's good that it represents in a different way, in a very different way. I mean,
after the L Word, you've gone on to take, I don't know if it's how you see yourself, but kind of your allyship, into a completely kind of new arena.
Yes.
Tell me about some of the things you're doing, because I know you've got the podcast that you did. You did, did another sort of queer role. What did you do afterwards?
Well, initially when I came back from LA, Vancouver, I got pregnant. So that was my personal thing, is that she's now upstairs and she's 14. So that's how long ago it was. So my life really changed because I then wasn't able to travel like I did for, before that as an actor. Because so often you get sort of like with the L Word, you get a casting and I'm like, yeah, sure. And you don't even think about where it is. If you're just a single woman, you just like, yeah, sure, I'll go there. Where?
You
Vancouver?
came from Hawaii, right? Hawaii to Vancouver?
Hawaii, London, Vancouver, yeah. So, and you just do it. But you can't do that I can't. When you have a kid, you don't want to do that. It's just too tiring as much as anything. And it's obviously, kids need a bit of stability. So I've been London-based, more or less. I've had little times in LA. But I've done a whole load of things. I've done quite a lot of television. I've done film. I've done a lot of television, actually, in the UK. What else? But I've also, this is what's weird, is that I did an English and drama degree, and I've always had this sort of, these two paths. Sorry, God, if I stop tickling her for a second. I've always had these two paths, the sort of journalism, acting. And ever since I was about, 12, 14, that's always been my two sort of interests, that I'm writing or I'm doing some kind of journalism and I'm acting. And I always seem to be like pulled towards one or the other and back and forth. And so it was very simple for me to do the journalism with a child when you can't move a lot. So I've been doing a lot of that, and I wrote for Diva magazine for a long time, and now I do their podcast, which is called Pod Diva. And although it's changed in format quite a lot, every time there's a magazine now, I do what we call the debrief, and we talk about it, me and the editor, Roxy Bourdion, and we sort of talk about the magazine, and we have interviews and all sorts of things. So it's a really varied, what they call a carousel podcast, with very varied interviews and episodes. So there's a lot of content. There's like over 120 episodes there now from different interviews, queer voices. And I love that. I love the journalistic side to it. And I make a lot of other audio as well, documentaries. I've done Radio 4 and all sorts of things. So.
And you've remained a voice in the queer community. Is that important to you? Why have you decided to kind of do that?
Yeah, it is important to me. It's also very interesting. When I look back on it now, you can see how it came about. I did a cover of Diva magazine because I was on the L Word. I got to know the editor of the magazine at the time. We got on very well. They asked me, would you like to write a bit? And I was like, oh yes, I would. That would be really in keeping now with... And then things kind of just develop from there, and then suddenly you've got a relationship at Diva magazine. So then I start doing things for Diva. But I also do stuff outside of that. It's not exclusive to that. But I think it's the same. I did a Bollywood film in 2000, and that was a huge hit. Was nominated for Best Foreign Language at the Oscars that year, which was great. So there's also that sort of, I didn't necessarily choose that, but last year I did a Netflix India show that was a huge hit. But that, again, it's another world of India. And I think you just get caught as an actor. You often get sort of, oh, this is where I've now belong. This is where I belong.
And do you feel an attachment to it?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say, I feel like I'm very lucky because LGBT communities are beautiful communities to spend time in. They're fun. They're very respectful. And it's lovely to be in a room full of women, like when I do Diva events or if I do L Word events, it's lovely to be in a room full of women who, I don't know, it's just nice. It's just they're a great bunch. And I feel very honoured that they kind of respond to me the way they do. It's great.
So we need a lesbian Bollywood film.
Yes. I think they're a few years behind that, I think. But yes, it's possible.
If it
They've just
happens.
had gay marriage, haven't they, in India? Was that in the last year or so? I remember doing a piece on that.
Oh, well, there you go. Look, if in a few years' time, leading lady.
Actually, there is a thing. There is a show. Again, I'm not going to remember the name of it because of all these things that come through Pod Diva. But there is a show that's a sort of Bollywood gay woman, because I remember we featured it on Pod Diva.
Nice.
So they're starting.
So now, moving on to your next big thing, blank. AI.
Yes.
Very different to Bollywood and Hollywood and the L Word.
Yes, very different. Very low budget, quite an indie. We shot it in, in about 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And we shot it in 2019. So that's a long time ago. And it's only now, I don't even know why. I don't know why it's taken so long. But only now is it out there. I think it's partly because they have quite a lot of special effects that they put on in post. And I think being an indie, everything, I could be wrong. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think they got a lot of favours, so things take longer.
A little bit longer, yeah.
But anyway, yes, now it's doing really well. They've won awards at lots of different and been nominated, and I've been nominated at all these different film festivals for. It's not horror. What do you call it? A cyber thriller? Is that what it's called? Because there's no horror in it really, but it's quite chilling and it's quite a slow burn. But it's It looks great. That's what's so amazing about this film, is that they made it on a shoestring. And the director of photography is a guy called James Oldham, and he's brilliant. And he's made it look incredibly expensive. And then all the stuff they've put on in post, again, makes it look really expensive.
And so you're a writer and you're at a writing retreat and it all goes wrong.
Yes, so it's set in the very near future where it's an AI automated writer's retreat. So you're basically kind of locked into a house, allowed out every now and then. You've got to get your work done. It's that kind of thing. You are looked after by an AI robot. AI, what would you call them? Well, maybe an AI, let's call her an AI robot, who's played by Heather Reid, who was in Poldark. I don't know if people might know her from that. She's great. And basically it's a two-hander between the two of us, and she's amazing, and I was so lucky to have her there in that sort of setup, because in a way we were locked. This is my daughter. Hello. So when we shot, we were up in Derby, and it was January, and it was very cold, and it was snowing outside, and we were kind of locked into this weird building where not only were we shooting, but it's where we were having but the catering was done in the kitchen of the kitchen that we were using to shoot in. So there were lots of things going on at the same time. If you imagine here, like if someone was cooking now in the background and going, no, hold on, that's just the oven, the sausage rolls are ready. You'd be in the middle of a scene and you'd be like, okay, just filming. So it was, it had its challenges, because that's what indie films do, but hats off to them. They've done an amazing job. And this is the director, Natalie Kennedy, and one of the producers, Rebecca Claire Evans. So it's female driven, which is great, but the actual characters, is two women.
Yeah.
It really trips along, and it's, I feel quite proud of it in the end, and we didn't even know if we were going to finish it when we were filming. So, it's great.
It's available for download in January.
Available to download in January. It's an unusual film, I think, because it isn't horror. It isn't it isn't a slasher at all. It's a slow burn, but I think because we filmed it in 2019, so before COVID, but it's all about being locked into this building. So in some way, it was really prescient, of what was about to come. And none of us knew what was about to come, but actually, God, it became, this is the idea of being locked in and doing everything online and virtual and being locked. It was actually very telling. So it was a good script, and my character goes through all sorts of things happen. She deals a cathartic process of dealing with her past and dealing with her own anxieties and fears, and she gets destroyed. She has a breakdown. I mean, everything happens to her. So for me as an actor, it was great. It was really good.
What comes next?
What comes next? Well, next is more audio. I've got some it's so frustrating at the moment. I was hoping that I'd be able to say, well, I'm doing this great new audio thing, but I can't, and I've just been told I can't this morning.
Secret
on an
things.
No. Well, nothing's quite finalised, which is annoying. But anyway, lots of more audio. I don't know on the acting front. I don't know. Let's see what happens next. I mean, always waiting for them to come back and say, put your Helena shoes on. And
what do you think Helena's character would be doing now?
I know, it's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I've thought about this quite a lot, because when we last saw Helena, she'd gone in a slightly different direction. She was becoming a bit of a hippie, which was
huge character arc.
Huge character arc for Helena. So who knows? I mean, maybe she's running a sanctuary of some sort. Who knows? I don't know.
My brain went the same way,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think she could have had, because she's got so much money, if she has this epiphany about what she should be doing with her money, maybe she is looking, I don't know.
Lesbian retreat.
A lesbian retreat, a free lesbian retreat. I don't know. I don't know what she's doing. It would be nice to see her again, I think. It would be lovely to see her again. So,
well, it's what the fans want. I mean, there's still a huge desire for Helena Peabody out there.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I mean, I'm very flattered by that. It's lovely. I can't control it, but...
Do you still get messages and things?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's what I was saying, and when we first started talking, this idea that it's a long time ago, and yet some people are just discovering it.
Yeah, people are and rewatching it as well.
And rewatching it and coming back, and suddenly, and on social media, people send pictures to me from my Helena days, and I'm like, oh, that's so long ago. And I feel like a lot of these people, if I walked in the room, because I'd be old enough to be not even just their mother now, maybe even their grandmother, and I'm like, hello, yes, this is me. And it's funny. It is funny, because I do the same, when I watch like I'm rewatching Friends with my daughter because she's of that age. So we watch Friends and you see all these characters and they're so young, and then you watch where they had that reunion, the Friends reunion, and you're like, oh, look how old they are. And they're my age. You know, those guys are all my age. And I'm shocked at how old they've become. It's a funny world. It's a funny world because you are sort of crystallized in ice at that age, and that's lovely. That was, you know, I can look at it now and go, who is that? You know, look at my hair, look at my skin. Wow, it's amazing. And
do you ever channel your inner Helena that way if you ever need to?
I feel like I still can. Yes, I can still do that. And I think, yeah, going back to what we were saying, I think a lot of people, I think that's why that representation is important, because people can say, I can be that. I can be that person. Just, you know, you can make yourself feel like you are that person when you need to. You can walk in and be that person. Yeah, I can be any one of a number of many different things, of course, and just, you know, be yourself, but you can inhabit those characters. And yes, I do. I used to. I think I used to do it a lot more when I first was back from shooting the L Word. I think I used to get called in for various different roles where I would do that, and I'd be getting out the trouser suit and the heels and walking into auditions and doing, you know. Before I got that role, there was a big casting director, the Hubbards in London, and I remember them saying to me, you will never be cast as the baddie because you're too sweet and you're just sort of angelic, which is, you know, that's kind of, in a way, a difficulty for you because people would never believe that you could do that because you're too sweet. And I remember going, really?
Am I?
Really? And then going to, you know, getting cast as Helena Peabody, the English accent really helps in America to make you a bit arch.
You're a little bit more the villain immediately.
Yeah, immediately, just because of your accent. And so doing that then turned it around. And when I came back, it was a case of, well, you're only going to play those arch, sort of slightly, you know, looking down your nose at people, you know.
I just saw a bit of Helena there, actually.
Exactly, you know, because that's what I got. And I was like, oh, so now that's... Anyway, you know.
Well, I, for one, and I know everybody else here, hope she makes a return sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
This was amazing. Loved it.
Thank you for coming and talking to me. Thanks.
Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the